Massive cuts at the federal level, leaving Texas in a difficult position. How can the state handle the sudden loss of cash from Washington?
Jokingly on occasion, someone will say it's the Bonin caucus.
Brothers in lawmaking, sibling rivalry aside, how this pair is helping the Texas House. And we break down the state's budget with our roundtable. Talmadge Heflin from the Texas Public Policy Foundation, Ava DeLuna Castro from the Center for Public Policy Priorities, and Bob Garrett from the Dallas Morning News.
Now, in-depth coverage of the Texas legislative session. In session, in depth.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Today we'll take an in-depth look at Texas budget. While complicated to say the least, the document will set the state's agenda and how your tax dollars are spent. We'll also take a look at some of the bills to watch as the legislature enters its third month. But we would begin with those automatic spending cuts from the federal government. No deal between the White House and congressional Republicans to prevent the $85 billion across-the-board cuts. They impact everything from defense readiness to air traffic controllers at airports. Those cuts will have a big effect here in Texas because the Lone Star State, like many others, receives a lot of money from the federal government, almost a third of the state's revenue. The cuts at the federal level could mean about $322 million lost for Texas. The three biggest agencies hit: the Texas Education Agency, State Health Services, and the Texas Workforce Commission. The cuts present a new challenge for lawmakers in Texas preparing our budget. They've already been working for weeks on it and might now have to make major adjustments.
Kind of a fruit basket turnover. So you plan and then you change your plans.
The state's health system will lose nearly $84 million in federal funding. The Department of State Health Services will see the greatest loss of almost $59 million. While still uncertain, the trickle-down effect would reach local clinics, affecting services like immunization, HIV testing, and emergency preparedness funds.
But there are definitely some programs and some activities that we have that receive some of those federal dollars, and so it could definitely have an impact on our provision of those services.
Certain public health programs are not subject to the cuts. That includes Medicaid, which makes up about half of the federal aid states receive. Of course, for many families, the cuts will hit home mostly at their children's schools. A big impact on Head Start. As KXAN's education reporter Erin Cargile explains, that will leave some of the country's most vulnerable children at risk.
They come from families that don't have much.
What letter is this?
But inside this classroom,
Who name start with that?
they have all the potential in the world.
Very good.
Reading and writing, technology and art, even good hygiene and table manners are part of their daily routine, setting the foundation for success while their parents struggle to survive.
And we're most likely talking families that are working minimum wage jobs and probably working 1 or 2 jobs.
With mostly federal dollars, Child Incorporated provides it all for free to more than 2,000 Travis County kids at more than a dozen centers like this one. To do what the name suggests, give kids from age 0 to 4 a head start before they enter school. A 5% cut in Head Start funding in Travis County means 112 children would lose their seats. It's not the direction this nonprofit wants to go, knowing the number of local families living in poverty continues to climb.
To understand that their daily experience would be not to come into these classrooms and engage with their peers and have potentially this bright future, yes, is very saddening to even think about.
In Northeast Austin, Erin Cargile, KXAN News.
Beyond the troubles rooted in Washington, Texas lawmakers also have plenty to figure out when it comes to the budget. One of the biggest items up right now is the bill to pay our bills from the last 2 years. An emergency $4.5 billion package is on its way to the full Senate to help pay for Medicaid. But the bill before the Senate comes with a twist. A rider that would reverse a $2 billion deferral in education spending passed in 2011. Reversing the deferral would give lawmakers more money to spend this year, but House leaders worry this could delay action on Medicaid, which could leave doctors without a way to pay the bills. In the week ahead, you'll want to keep a close eye on some other bills moving through the Texas legislature. Lawmakers are considering a bill to ban texting while driving. Families who've lost someone to the dangerous practice spoke to House members last week. While lawmakers passed a similar measure last session, Governor Rick Perry vetoed it. A Senate bill is aiming to combat the growing number of wrongful convictions in Texas. The proposal was prompted by the case of Michael Morton, who was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife and later released after DNA testing. The bill would expand the statute of limitations for filing with the state bar grievances alleging prosecutorial misconduct. Still to come on In Session In Depth, a budget breakdown. Our roundtable tackles the big issue that affects all of us. Next.